Ferrari is no stranger to open-topped cars. Its very first car was open-topped. So it should be no surprise that there is now a new open-top version of the 296. It's called the GTS, a name that we're used to, and, well, it's stunning. We spent some time with the designer last night and they told us that the two cars were designed together. He interestingly described them as identical twins, but just like identical twins, there are big differences between their personalities. And that's why we're in Italy today, to see what the big difference is. As you can see, the 296 GTS is not very different looking to the GTB at first glance, but in fact, from here back, it's all new. So obviously the roof is new, and this is a folding aluminium hardtop. It takes only 14 seconds to go down, and you can do that at up to 45 kilometers an hour. Back here, you have a window that goes up and down as well. So whether you want to hear the engine, whether you don't, whether you want a bit more safety from the buffeting, that's completely up to you. You can put that down when the roof is up as well, of course. Back here, you've still got a glass cover. You can see this stunning V6 engine back here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I'm out driving. And the rest of the rear, while it looks very, very similar to the GTB, has been revised quite significantly. It still has the same aero, the same drag, the same downforce, which is really interesting. And these haunches, they define the design of the car for me. So you have all this efficiency up the front, the aerodynamic efficiency, the heat management for the engine, and yet you have these haunches which hark back to the 250 LM. It is quite a stunning looking car. The designer also told us that he very much wanted the owners to feel like they're sitting in the 296 GTS, not on it. And that's part of those haunches. And actually, if you look in the rear view mirrors, they're there all the time. It gives it a lot of presence and it defines it. You can't see very much at the front, of course, because it's such a low front. Now, the rest of the cabin, as you expect, the same as the GTB. It's a two-seat layout. It's snug, but it's not cramped in any way. There's plenty of space. I've got room for my elbows. Even if there's somebody sitting next to me, that is not an issue. Obviously, I'm not very tall, so there's no issue here with headroom. And if you have the roof off, obviously anybody can fit in. The dashboard is a digital affair, and Ferrari has gone all digital with this car. So there's a lot of haptic feedback and touch-sensitive controls. The steering wheel is absolutely crammed with controls, and I must admit, on first acquaintance, it takes a lot to get used to, but that can't be a criticism. If you own the car, you'll soon get used to it. And there's a lot going on here. You have the indicators, you have a little touchpad here, you have two Manettinos now. So you have the traditional Ferrari one, and you also have the new hybrid one over here. And lots of driver settings. I'll go through those when we're out on the road in a little bit. Everything else is of high quality. It does take a bit getting used to, like I mentioned, but it's a pretty typical Ferrari interior. It's quite eerie to start out in a Ferrari with no engine noise whatsoever. It'll do about 25 kilometers on electric power alone. So enough to skulk away from home in the early morning if that's what you need to do. There's a lot of controls to get used to, a lot of driving controls, lots of options for driving. First of all, what Ferrari calls the second Manettino on the left over here. It isn't a physical switch, but it operates the different driving modes for hybrid. So it defaults into hybrid power, just chooses which, and in fact it starts off in electric to start with. Now, if you touch this, it lights up because it's actually, it's like a black screen, it's a black panel. You have fully electric, hybrid, and then you have what they call performance and qualifying. So qualifying gives you everything, full maximum performance for as long as there is charge in the battery. Performance is the one that I find is the one to use on these interesting roads where it'll give you huge performance all the time, and it prioritizes performance over efficiency. If you leave it in hybrid, it goes for efficiency. The transmission itself, it's an 8-speed automatic. Down here are the controls for it. You can choose it to be fully automatic shifting. You can choose manual shifting, where you use these gorgeous gear change paddles behind the wheel. At the moment, I'm in electric mode. There is no engine noise. Let's get rid of that. So, what you're listening to is a twin turbocharged 2.9 litre V6. We've seen it already in the GTB, in combination with the electric motor, which is between the engine and the transmission itself. There's 830 horsepower and 740 newton meters of torque available. Make no mistake, you look at this and think it's convertible, but this is actually a supercar with the roof that comes off. It's actually quite quiet on the motorway, surprisingly, and overall the car is quite comfortable on the motorway, which again was a real surprise. And Italy is not known for its brilliant road surfaces, so Ferrari is quite brave launching it here, and quite happy to bring us over some of the rougher road surfaces. And this car, it just moves with the surface. It moves with the road surface very, very well. On these flowing roads, this is where it really, really comes alive. And this is where you could want to hear this engine. It is a serious, serious piece of kit. Now, the regular Manettino is present and correct. We were advised keep it in sport for most of the day. It's a lovely, dry, sunny day here in Italy. There is a mode below that for when it's a bit more slippery and it's a bit wetter perhaps, a bit colder. And above that, there are other modes which we're also going to explore. There's a race mode and a CT off. So race mode is fairly extreme for road use, to be honest, but it does show the 296 GTS at its best. This road surface, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it is really very, very poor, and this car is coping so well with it. It just feels so planted. Ferrari has long invested in its very advanced driver assistance systems, and when I say driver assistance, it's to make it feel more fun, to make it feel more agile. And really, you get straight into this 830 horsepower hybrid supercar, and you can feel like you can wring its neck pretty much straight away. It's so agile. The steering is not darty. It isn't nervous. The response to it is instantaneous. I'd say the same for the gear change paddles. I'd say the same for the brake pedal. And this is brake by wire, actually. So Ferrari has very cleverly used that to disguise when you're using brake energy regeneration. You just don't know when it's happening. It just feels like solid, dependable brake pedal. And of course the brakes are huge. It's got massive braking power. It's the kind of car you just want to go and drive and drive and drive. It really is very, very special from that point of view. As I mentioned, the roof can go up and down at 45 kilometers an hour, up to 45 kilometers an hour. Let's just put it up for the sake of it. So with the roof up, it's an aluminium hard top. It just feels like a coupe, and you can hear my voice is echoing here as well. So it's quite different feel to it. It instantly feels like a coupe. Kind of surprisingly, Ferrari call this their little V12 because they use every trick in the book to make it sound like a V12 to my ears here in the driver's seat. But it doesn't really sound like a V12. It sounds like a very special V6, there's no doubt about that. They use something called a hot tube, which is a funny way of putting it, but they try to pick out the bits of the sound that they want you to hear and pump that through to the cabin. Not using speakers and microphones, I might add. It's just using tubes and resonators. It sounds epic regardless. It's quite an experience to come to a part of Italy like this and roads like this and experience the 296 GTS. It's a perfect environment for it. But as I mentioned earlier, it actually copes very well with the day-to-day stuff on the motorway, badly surfaced roads, urban traffic. It can do it all. When you open it up though, it's a proper Ferrari supercar. And really, it doesn't come down to whether you wonder is the GTB or the GTS more focused, it's which one you prefer. Either way, they're very special cars.